Hey guys, I'm Katie,
And I'm Ryan.
and this is the list where we are watching IMDb's top 100 greatest movies of all time and telling you which ones should be on your bucket list. This week we watched Mutiny on the Bounty. I don't have a cool accent for it. Let's brainstorm. Pirate accent. No.
Mutiny on the Bounty.
Mutiny on the Bounty, arg. I've got scurvy.
The scurvy. The scurvy.
There were probably parts of my life where I almost had scurvy. Because all I ate was meat and potatoes.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say there was never a part of your life where you almost had scurvy. Never.
Almost is relative. But I would say there's a point in time in high school where I ate nothing for breakfast. And then I would eat a bag of potato chips and a Coke for lunch. And then I would eat potato chips and then some kind of like meat and potatoes for dinner. And that was about it. I lived on a potato chip diet, so I'm going to tell myself that I almost had scurvy. You don't have to believe it.
There's a part of my life, like in the last 3 days, where I probably lived on that diet, unfortunately.
Yeah. I feel like if you can live on any diet, a potato diet is not a terrible one to live on. Potatoes are rich in nutrients.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could cook them a million different ways, and so that would be, they wouldn't get boring.
No, how would you get bored of a potato? Potato chips, mashed potatoes, baked potato, French fries, tater tots. There's so much good to a potato.
You literally just named like fried potatoes. That's
yeah. Well, how else do you need? Baked. I said baked.
Oh, okay.
I said baked.
Ooh,
I would just say probably the only thing I wouldn't do would be a potato salad, but that's because I don't eat mayonnaise. Not even Duke's.
Not even Duke's.
Now you know why I almost had scurvy. Speaking of almost having scurvy, we watched Mutiny on the Bounty this week. Arr.
I'm not sure which one would have been more fun.
Scurvy or
Mutiny
on the
Mountain or Mutiny on the Bounty. They both made me want to lose teeth.
That's pretty good. Oh gosh. Well, do you want to tell everybody what it's about, or do I have to tell them?
Well, basically it's another old film, 1932. I want to say
35. 1935.
1935. Stars Clark Gable. And basically it's based on a real story, supposedly from the 1700s, about a ship of Englishmen who sail off to Tahiti to do some trading, and they're abused pretty badly and basically become mutineers and take over the ship from the captain.
Yeah, I will say though, from everything I've read, it was not historically accurate. There are a lot of historical inaccuracies, but I was surprised to see that it was based on a real story.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was historically accurate or not. I saw that the worst, Clark Gable had to shave his mustache, and he was really mad about it because in that time sailors weren't allowed to have a mustache.
Oh, really?
So yeah, he had to shave it.
Well, I assumed that, but I didn't know he had to shave it.
Yeah, and he was
I guess
really
that is kind of his his staple look, right?
Is it? I've never seen him before, I don't think.
Well, I only see him in like pictures from like Gone with the Wind and that type of stuff.
Is he in Gone with the Wind?
Little pencil.
Is he in Casablanca?
No, that's Humphrey Bogart, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, I probably have seen Clark Gable then because I've read Gone with the Wind, but I've never seen it.
You've seen him.
I've
you've seen him. When you see him with a mustache, you'll be like, yeah, okay, yeah. Clark Gable.
With or without a mustache. He's a very attractive young man. I see why he was a movie star.
Oh, Clarky.
Oh, you guys are on a nickname basis? I didn't know.
We were.
You were.
He passed away.
Oh, R.I.P. R.I.P. Clarky. What a surprise that he filmed a movie in 1935 and now he's dead. I was shocked.
Yeah. Never. I didn't see it
Spoiler
coming.
alert! Spoiler. um, I guess I'll save that comment. Actually, I overall, eh.
Yeah, I will say this movie took a really long time to get into.
It really did.
I struggled for the first 45 minutes of the film just
yeah.
to be interested in it.
If we
and it
were
was
not
over, it was a little over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so 45 minutes it took me to actually get into it. And we
If-
usually don't stop films because I personally think to interrupt a movie like ruins the whole movie. But like we had to stop because we were like, I just can't take anymore. And we came back the next day and like I had no problem jumping into it the next day. So I don't know if it was just the mood that I was in when we started the movie or
it wasn't because I was
but it
in
was
a normal mood.
It was really rough to get into to begin with.
And usually you give it 15 minutes and you're into a movie. I started watching Catch Me If You Can, and in the first 10 minutes I'm hooked and I'm into it. But even if it's a movie you didn't really want to watch in the first place, within 10 minutes you're like, okay, I'm in. But 45 minutes, it took a long time. And even after the 45 minutes, I was like, there were it did eventually grip me to the point where I would have wanted to see the end of the movie no matter what. But it took a while to get there. If we had not been doing this for the podcast, I would have said, turn this off. What a waste of my time. But I'm glad we pushed through because it ended up a good movie.
It's got some, I think this movie has
qualities.
Some merit. It does. Yeah. It was just a little tough to get into. And that would be one of my main complaints. I have a couple other ones and we'll talk about those as we get into it. But that is one of my main issues. It just took so long to get into this film that it kind of spoiled some of the
viewing process.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it takes a long time for a movie to get to the point. Like with Taxi Driver, it was really slow to get there, but you're interested anyway. Mm-hmm. This was just labor. It was like work to get through it and finally get to a point that felt like sitting back and watching a movie versus waiting to get there.
I agree. What did you think, for this film to be as old as it was, I think it's as old as like the very first one we watched, it's over 80 years old. What did you think about as far as the scale of this movie?
You mean the way, are we talking about cinematography?
Kind of a wow factor and cinematography kind of combined into one. What did you think the wow factor for this movie was?
Filming on the ships was wow. There were quite a few times that I was shocked by the scale of the ships, the shots that they got. I was curious how they did it such a long time ago. A post-movie wow factor for me was finding out that they filmed on Tahiti. They filmed on location. They traveled to these places.
Oh, I didn't realize. I would assume they just went to like Hawaii or maybe did it in California somewhere, but they actually went to Tahiti.
And that was from what I read. I hope I'm not wrong, but from what I read, it was saying that they filmed in Tahiti. Let me just double check this. Yeah, they filmed in French Polynesia, MGM Studios, Monterey Bay, California, Monterey Harbor, California, Tahiti, French Polynesia, South Pacific, Pacific Ocean. Oh, James Cagney were uncredited extras. James Cagney was an extra.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not notice him at all.
Me either. I wonder who he was.
But there was a part where they had probably 1,000 extras in one scene, and I was maybe he was one of those guys.
That's funny. That's so funny that he was an extra.
So this must have been before he was a big star.
Yeah.
I would
How
assume.
interesting. 1942 was Yankee Doodle Dandy, but it says James Cagney, then on hiatus from Warner Brothers during a contract dispute, and future stars David Niven and Dick Haymes were uncredited extras in the movie. Cagney is clearly visible towards the beginning of the film. He was selling his boat near where the film was shooting, near Catalina Island. Director Frank
Oh,
Lloyd was an old friend of his, and Cagney asked if he could play a small part in the film, saying, "I need the money."
that's too funny.
Yeah, Charles Lawton, who had a severe self image complex concerning his weight and unattractive looks, suffered horribly in comparing himself to the handsome, masculine Clark Gable. Lawton would constantly watch his own walk, gestures, and face, making sure not to let his complex be projected. Oh, well, that was random, but
Was
anyway,
he Captain Bligh?
yeah. So I think part of the wow factor to me was the post. I don't like to include that, I don't think. So I'm going to actually not include that in my rating, but looking at it now, finding out afterwards that they filmed on location is kind of a wow factor to me. Um, but just seeing the giant boats and um, the scale, I keep coming back in my mind to the word scale. You said it was a very large scale movie. There was a
There's a
lot.
lot of grandeur, I thought, in this
Mm-hmm.
film because, yes, they weren't using models. They were actually
Mm-mm.
out on the ocean on a real sailboat
Yeah.
filming, and it wasn't like they're carrying around little camcorders
No.
on their shoulder. These are like big things on wheels back in the day. And
Right.
so I thought that was pretty big wow factor.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
I think that the action that you see in the film was a lot more than what we've seen in other films of that age,
what do you mean?
as far as just fight scenes, all the hundreds of extras that they have come out on the
There were
islands
so many
and
extras.
all that other stuff. And so this must have been a pretty big budget film
I think it
back in the
was
day, especially
25
if they
million and they only grossed 18 million.
25 million in
If that
nineteen
it could have been another Mutiny on the Bounty, but I did read that it was 25 million and I read it on Reddit too.
It
It was
can't
just people talking.
it
But
can't be that day's money. That must be a translation in today's money.
they said 25 million but that it only returned 18 million.
Hmm. Wow. So for me, I think that this film probably was pretty groundbreaking as far as that goes, as far as filming on sea with all the action sequences and just the grandeur and the scale and size of this film. I think that was probably pretty groundbreaking. They did have some pretty a lot of different interesting camera angles and things like that I noticed as well, like looking
Mm-hmm.
up the mass and and out to sea and the islands and even just shots from the different characters. So I think I see the merit as far as that goes in this film. The Let's talk about acting. The acting to begin with was really not good.
No.
And then as we finally got into the film, like I felt like the acting improved. But towards the beginning of the film, it was like hard to even get into because of the acting was just not up to par with the standards of today. But as the story progressed, I felt like the acting got better and better
Yeah, I
and
agree.
better.
I think I told you that it reminded me a little bit of, I guess that's story actually, but
I
it
guess we didn't
reminded me.
rate. Yeah,
Yeah, we're kind
I'm
of jumping
sorry.
around today. Sorry. Okay, let's go back and
So
rate
the
wow
wow
factor.
factor, I would rate 8.5, 8.4.
I'm gonna give it a 6.5. The only wow factor to me was the boats
Hmm.
and the scale of filming. Yeah, was about it for me. And then we want to move on to
And then we're
acting.
talking about the acting. Yeah.
The acting was a little cheesy, but I feel like that's a product of its time, especially the one guy who's like leaving his wife and kid,
Yeah,
and
that
he's the
actor.
short guy. He was very cheesy.
Yeah, he was very stage
hard to
acting.
identify with. Yeah. Hard to root for because you're like, dude, chill. Like, relax.
It's a little over the top, and then
Yeah.
very stage acting
Yeah.
instead of a movie for
Yep.
that
And I
guy.
think it was a product of its time. But then again, you have Clark Gable there, and you have a Charles Lawton, and they were both so good
They were
and
good.
just incredible that you put them next to these people who are being really cheesy, and it's like it just almost makes it more obvious and worse. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
going for acting overall, I'm going to say that the acting is probably a 7 overall. But if we parse it down to just Laughlin and Gable, and there was another person
The
in
other
there.
officer.
Oh, Franchot Tone, Roger Byam. His acting was very good to me too. He was the one who
Mm-hmm.
came on as like a midshipman,
Yeah,
and I thought his acting was very good too. For them, I would say probably a 9.5. For
the supporting
what's his name? I
characters.
keep forgetting his name. Um, Captain Bligh, probably a close to a 10. Because boy, I
Captain
hated
Bligh, I
him.
felt like was probably one of the
Good,
shining stars in the
very
film.
good.
So yeah, I think his acting was way up there, but even Clark Gable's to begin with was a little stage acting
Over the top. Come
over the
on, men,
top to begin
we're
with, and
gonna go sail.
then it got better as the film progressed.
And I think a
And
lot of
so
that too probably has something to do with the writing, because there's not much depth to his character. He's just a man who's looking for people to come serve their country on the ship. And then as the story progresses, there's much more depth to the story and to the characters. And I think that his acting reflects that.
you may have a point. I think for me, the acting's probably only like a 6.5
Yeah, I get it.
overall.
I'm
But
gonna go with a
if
seven and
you
a half
crop out
overall.
just the two lead characters, then it's way up there.
Which we can't really do. I feel like that's not
No.
fair. We have to judge it as overall as a movie. So I'm going to go 7.5 with the
Mm-hmm.
acting. What do you think about the story?
Yeah, I think the premise of the story is actually really interesting. A mutiny on a naval ship with just a very cruel, hard captain. I think the premise is interesting and has the potential to be a really great story. I just don't think the execution was great.
Me either. It was based on a novel too.
Oh,
So
really?
it was a real story that was turned into a novel and then turned into a movie. So I don't know how true it was to the novel, if they wanted to adapt closely to whatever was written, but I agree. There were a couple of times that I told you it reminded me of The Count of Monte Cristo, which is one of my favorite books of all time. Just an extraordinary book about revenge and changing. And there were a couple of times where it gave me that kind of vibe, but nowhere near the level or execution of it.
Yeah, this did not reflect Monte Cristo in any way to me whatsoever.
Um, I would say that just the way it dragged so hard in the beginning is almost unforgivable. I know that it's different now. Attention spans are different. You have to really get to the point. I have said this in every podcast, and I'll probably keep saying it. But as a writer, unfortunately, I know that too. I've written books that haven't sold because they're too quiet or they don't get into the action fast enough. I know that that's the way things are now, and that it wasn't that way before. But this is not a case of things have changed and times have changed. It just was way too slow and way too boring. It was boring. It was really boring in the
The first
beginning.
part was very boring. And then when you
Mind
start to
numbingly
see the
boring.
extent of the cruelty of the captain and the men's reaction to it, that's when it kind of really started to take off. You're like, I can't
Yeah,
believe this. They're doing
is
this to
happening.
these
Yeah.
people,
In
right?
the first 45 minutes, do you know what it was? It was like when you go
It was just like getting
into,
to know all the characters, and
well, it's, but the
it was
vibe is
chaos.
when you go to school and your teacher's like, we're going to watch a movie, but then they turn on like some horrible movie that nobody wants to watch and you're stuck in the class and you can't leave. That's what it felt like. Like I had to spend 45 minutes there staring at it and I could not leave. But then it did get better as the story developed and progressed. But like I said, it's so boring that it is unforgivable to me and makes me want to knock it down quite a
Yeah.
bit story wise. But on the opposite, like on in the other hand, it developed so well and paid off so well that it's just towing the line of making it worth it. I don't know. I think it was worth it. So,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was worth watching to the end. And I see why this is a top 100 film. And I think it's mostly because it's groundbreaking.
mhm.
I don't think it's for any other reason. I
No.
think it sets the tone and the standard for other action films to come.
I don't
Otherwise, I
know
don't
if
really see a lot of merit
I don't know if I
in
agree
it being
with
the
that
top
because
100.
I feel like emotionally it turns into such a good story emotionally. Obviously, it's not a spoiler to tell you that a mutiny happens on the boat. But
It's in the
obviously,
title.
yeah,
Spoiler.
another thing that happens is some people are blamed for the mutiny who took no part in it. And that part of the story emotionally grips you so well that I can see why people who hand out awards or people who are professional critics watched this movie and thought, wow, this is great. This deserves accolades. But as
But
a casual viewer,
just to play devil's advocate, though, we have had other movies where they literally tell you the end of the movie within the first 10 seconds of the film, but we've been absolutely riveted
riveted.
to watch
Yeah.
every moment of it
Yeah.
because of the way that the story unfolds.
I agree.
And for this, even though we know that there's going to be a mutiny, the way that it was told just fell flat for half of the film almost.
Yeah.
And that's the real tragedy of the story, not the mutiny.
That should be clipped.
And so
That was cold.
I would not recommend this as a bucket list movie
No,
to
neither would I.
anybody.
I feel like we've been on the same page too much lately. Like it's starting to scare me because there was a little bit there where we disagreed pretty vehemently, and I agree with you. This is not a bucket list movie. I don't know that I would even
Is it
recommend
top?
people watch this movie.
Yeah. If there's something else to watch, I'd probably say
Oh,
go for that.
I guess I'll say that at cinematography. We kind of skipped cinematography.
Oh, we did.
Boy, we are ping ponging around. Okay,
We are.
so
Well, we
so
kind of threw that
story.
in. We kind of threw that
We
in
did. It's
with
fine.
the wow factor.
Yeah, story. I would say 6.5 for the way it redeems itself towards the last half of the movie.
That's fair. I would probably say 6.5 as well.
Can we talk about the cinematography?
Yes.
This movie
Please.
is why I don't like black and white movies. Something about it sucks all the joy out of watching. It is just so
When it drags like that, it doesn't.
pale. I don't know. It's not the dragging, it's the way it looks. You look at a film noir and you are captivated by the cinematography. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful to me. The lighting, how striking it is, the shots, the smoke, all of it is so gorgeous to me. I don't care that it's in black and white. In fact, it may even be elevated by being in black and white. This movie, I'm just like, oh, I hate this. I hate watching this. I hate these kinds of black and white movies. And I despised it. Nothing they could do about it, but I didn't like it.
I don't know. I have to disagree with that. I mean, a film noir, it's curated specifically for the black and white contrast,
And it's done
the
so
play on light.
well.
This is not a film
It's
noir. This is
gorgeous.
an outside film on
Yeah,
the
but we're
open ocean.
talking about cinematography.
So,
And I know there's nothing they could do about it. It's not like they can magically make it filmed in color. But I'm just saying, for me, this kind of movie is the one I watch and I'm like, ugh, I hate looking at this. I hate that it's in black and white. I just don't like it. It's ugly.
so Let me just ask, would this film been any better if it was in color?
Yeah.
No, it would not
Yeah,
have. What would have made it better?
It would have looked better.
No, it wouldn't have. It would not have. It would not have made it less painful to watch in any way. You still would have been like, oh, this 45 minutes to get into this is killing me. You still would have been like, the acting is
just because
mediocre.
I cannot define something.
Like,
just because I cannot define something doesn't mean it's not a truth to me.
I'm sitting and watching. I think you're.
It's the same
overreacting
thing.
On the color of the film that they can do nothing about.
Obviously, they can't do anything about it. I'm not going to write them a letter. I'm not.
But in film noir, they can, because they're in a controlled environment where they can control the light and the darkness.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to like ding the score for it.
I don't think
I'm not going to cut the score down. I'm just saying I hate it. And White Christmas is supposed to be one of like the greatest movies ever, most touching movies ever. Bank Failure.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. And I hate watching that one too because it's in black and white. There's something about movies in black and white that make the viewing experience.
Well, I hope you enjoy it because it's on the list, and it's it's like number 24, and it's one of the greatest films ever made.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie because of it. I'm not saying it's a bad movie because it's in black and white. I'm saying it makes the experience less enjoyable for me. And I don't know why. I cannot articulate it. But something about these movies in black and white, just something about watching them is irritating to me and unenjoyable. A little less enjoyable. I don't know why. Your face is judging me so hard. I'm about to turn off my computer screen.
We're on a podcast. No one can see my face.
People are.
And my face isn't judging you. I'm just laughing at you because
I'm trying to think of a comparable experience.
It's ridiculous.
Do you? Okay, so there are people who like listening to music on records, right? Because the sound quality is better to them. They like the way it sounds on a record, right? It elevates the experience. Something about that medium of listening elevates the experience for them. But other people don't like listening to music on records. They just don't like it. They would prefer to listen on clear audio from a computer or from a CD or whatever. It's just a preference, right? And I'm not saying that I will ding the movie any for it. I'm just saying that we started off this podcast and I was like, I don't like watching black and white movies. And then we popped like so many film noirs and I was like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. This is amazing. This is beautiful. And then we got to a black and white movie that wasn't a film noir and I was like, never mind. I don't like this. And I think it's just a preference of I don't want to say medium, but I just don't like it very much.
At the end of the day, whether it's vinyl or digital, the song is the same.
And the movie is the same, but some people prefer vinyl over digital.
It's not as good.
No.
Because it's
I didn't say I was going to ding the score any. I would have enjoyed it more.
You didn't ding the score, but you don't like it as much.
I don't like it as much.
Even though the content is the same.
I just don't enjoy it as much. And the good news is that since I'm not articulating anything definite or tangible, you don't get to tell me I'm wrong. Because it's all made up in my head.
I'm just trying to find an avenue where I can understand your point of view.
You've been trying to find an avenue to understand me for 16 years, and we haven't gotten there yet.
They say men are the bad ones about articulating their feelings.
I know that it doesn't make sense, and I'm not telling anyone not to watch this movie because it's in black and white. I am just saying I don't enjoy it when it's in black and white like this. I don't know why. Something about the feel of it. Art is subjective. It's so subjective, and some people don't enjoy certain artistic mediums. They just don't. And you can't always say why you don't enjoy something. Maybe you don't enjoy, I don't know, maybe you just don't like impressionist art, or you know what I'm saying, like there may just be some art that you do not enjoy and you can't articulate why. You just look at it and go, I just don't like it, but I like this, and I just don't like it. But I like film noir.
Okay. It's not a very good analogy.
How is that not a good analogy?
Because the medium is the same in this film. The only difference is they didn't have access to color.
I'm not.
It's like you're saying, I don't like black and white paintings, but all that's available is black and white. And
Okay,
so
but
you have to look at this through the lens of time. You can't look at this through our spoiled
I do, though. I do look at it from the lens, through the lens of
technology that
time.
we have today.
And I'm not
And so,
saying, again, I've said I wouldn't ding it for being in black and white. I wouldn't go, this isn't a good movie and it loses cinematography points because it's in black and white. But I can say I just didn't, I didn't
and,
like,
and I'm just saying you should just try to enjoy it for what it
I,
is
I do feel like,
and not worry about whether it's in color, black and white, because what you got is what you got. And it
I
doesn't matter. It's still not that enjoyable of a film, whether it was in color or whether it was in black and white. And that's my point, is that this is not a great movie to
no, it's
watch.
not. But
Even if
you're
all the
trying,
characters had been pink pandas in tutus, it would not have made it any better.
you're trying to apply logic to a situation where I'm basing off of feeling and gut. Like there's no logic to be applied here. I hear what you're saying.
Point taken. Let's move on.
When you stand in front of a piece of art, you have a gut feeling and reaction to it. So I feel like it's okay to base off of, anyway. I feel like this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call an impasse. Where I refuse to listen to logic and Ryan refuses to listen to emotion.
I think I'm applying both. They're just both not good.
Oh, that's cute that you think you're applying. What emotion are you feeling right now?
It's a good question. Mostly amusement.
I will say also, I tend to overstate things. You know I do. I'll just be like, oh, it was horrible because it's in black and white. But that's not what I'm saying.
That's why I'm playing devil's advocate
Obviously,
with you, because
I'm not.
I know you're over exaggerating
Yes.
the actual situation, and so I'm trying to bring it back down to reality, a happy medium.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm messing with you.
Yes, no. So I would say, bring it down to a medium and not exaggerating for comedic effect. It just kind of was, made it a little less enjoyable for me, but overall had no effect on my rating of the movie. It's not like I saw it in black and white and thought, oh, this is terrible because it's in black and white. It just was less enjoyable. I don't know. I liked it. I liked watching it less.
And if you look at her tier, I think her top two movies are black and white. So
they are, but aren't they film noir?
Mm-hmm. I think so. All right, let's rate this thing then. On our list.
Okay, slay.
I'll go ahead and share my screen first.
Okay.
And So I have Double Indemnity still at number 1, and my number 10 slot is Maltese Falcon. Where would I rate this one in our personal top 10? I will put it in a garbage can if we have one. Because
Okay.
no, it doesn't belong on the top 10 list. I think even though Maltese Falcon had severe plot issues, it was still more enjoyable than Mutiny.
Yeah. Okay, here's mine. I have Double Indemnity first, Third Man, Wuthering Heights. Those three are all black and white. Not to bring
black and white
up a sore subject again. James Dean's Rebel Without a Cause, Rear Window, The Great Dictator, Taxi Driver, Yankee Doodle Dandy, North by Northwest, and Maltese Falcon. At this point, 8, 9, and 10 are all grouped together to me. And I'm kind of at the point where I'm judging, was it better than Yankee Doodle Dandy to me? Because that's kind of where they hit for me. I don't think it was. I think it was not better than Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Was it better than North by Northwest?
I'm trying to figure out if the emotional I'm trying to figure out if the emotional payoff at the end makes it better than North by Northwest to me.
So the one part at the end versus the whole movie.
Well, you know how much I didn't like North by Northwest, and so it's not that it's like an extraordinary movie all of a sudden. I really hated North by Northwest. But adding in...
Because of the ending.
Not because of the ending. I mean, because of where it finally started to get good and gripping, and you finally start to understand the story, and you're finally into it, and then I wouldn't say that the end, like the actual ending, was incredible or anything. When I say the ending, I guess I should rephrase and say when the movie got started. Because of the slow beginning, it's immediately 8 or under for me. But I'm trying to figure out if when it got started and when it got going and I was invested in the characters and in the situation, did that redeem it enough to make it better than North by Northwest for me? And I think it did. So I think that I'm going to clear that one. And I'm going to pull North by Northwest down to 10 and put Mutiny on the Bounty at 9. Yeah. Just to kind of also
to do that.
Explain where my mentality is.
North
These are
by
all...
Northwest is way better than
to you.
Mutiny on the Bounty.
You know I hated North by Northwest. I despised it.
This must be one of those purely emotional
every decision I make is purely emotional.
North by Northwest was captivating from the moment that it started.
Was it?
Yes, you're like, what's going on?
I was ready for it to be over like 20 times. I was like, done with it. You know I didn't like North by Northwest.
I mean, there were some weird parts in it, but at least it was overall enjoyable.
Do you not remember how many times? Do you not remember how many times I said that movie was absurd and not in a good way? I think you forgot like how strongly I despised that movie. I hated it. And so putting Mutiny on the Bounty above North by Northwest is not me suddenly saying it's a great movie. It still is.
It's you saying
it's better than North by Northwest.
Is better than North by Northwest.
Yeah, it is to me. If you sat me down and said you either have to watch one of these two movies again, I would say pull up the Pirate Boys. I'm ready to watch
any day.
Because at least the emotional payoff of Mutiny on the Bounty is higher than North by Northwest, which you leave feeling like what, and unsatisfied. And there were so many times during it that I was just removed from the movie and irritated with what was happening and did not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. And I think Mutiny on the Bounty, with the way that they develop the characters, the way that they develop the situation, how they have you uncertain at a point of how bad the villain actually is, They have the incredible feats that happen 3/4 of the way into the movie. You're invested and you want to watch. There's the relationships that the people have with the native people on the island of Tahiti. There are reasons to watch this movie. I did not like North by Northwest at all. And I feel like Mutiny on the Bounty is just a hair better than North by Northwest. But the great news is in 2 weeks, they're both going to be off my list. So.
We hope.
No, oh gosh, yes, I do hope, actually.
We hope. Okay. Well, I still don't agree that it's even close to North by Northwest.
We have separate lists for this reason, right?
I know.
How bad would it be if we had to agree before we could move the list?
This would be a very short podcast. Very short. But that's why we got 2 separate views.
Yeah.
According to you, we have the logic and we have the emotion.
It's true.
So together we make a whole person.
Honestly, Ryan, you are extremely logical and I am extremely emotional. It's very true. And neither is a bad thing. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just very true. We both think very differently from each other. We have different worldviews and a different way of enjoying and experiencing things, and then a different way of analyzing them. We just do. And you are more able to articulate the things that you're thinking. For me, it takes a minute. I have that immediate emotional reaction to something, and that's just the way things are to me. And it takes me a minute to sit with it and to be able to explain why I feel the way that I do. So I know the way that I feel about it, but I don't often know why or how to explain it. So.
Cool.
Cool.
Is this a top 100 movie to you?
No.
Not even top 100, really?
I don't know. That's a hard question for me to answer because I mean, that's so subjective. If you were instead to ask me, do I understand why it's on this list? Yeah, I understand. I understand why they put it there. Would I recommend people watch it?
That's kind of what I'm asking. How is it?
But different? It's not. If I made my top 100 list,
well, I'm not talking about yours. I'm
talking
about their top 100.
If we're talking about their top 100 list and me understanding why it's on there, yes, I understand why it's there. What do you think? Is it a top 100 movie?
I see why it's on there.
Yeah.
It's groundbreaking.
Bucket list movie?
No.
Yeah, agreed.
No. Mm-mm. There's lots
just kidding.
Of
I think it should be a bucket list movie. And I don't know why. I just feel it. That's also how I react when I'm driving. I don't use a GPS. I just feel my way to wherever I go and let the earth pull me in the direction I need to go.
I don't like the look of that car.
I don't. Look at that black and white vehicle. I'm gone. No, I don't think this is a bucket list movie. And I would not even recommend people watch this movie, frankly.
I'm kind of on the same page with you on that one. Well,
if you feel emotionally led to do so, you should follow us on Instagram, Ryan and Kat's list. Or if logically you just think it's a good decision, you also should follow us, Ryan and Kat's list.
Did anybody leave you a voicemail yet?
No, where are my voicemails?
I haven't checked.
No, are you trying to tell me something? Did you leave me a voicemail?
I didn't leave a voicemail.
No, I assumed it would notify us.
I would assume that too, but I haven't looked. Maybe
we'll check after this.
Follow us. Thanks for listening. My name's Ryan.
My name's Katie.
Sometimes. She feels like it.
Yeah.
And this is the list.
The list. Oh, I tried. 1, 2, 3. The list. Oh. Close enough.
Unsubscribe.
Resubscribe. Bye, guys.